Your team is banned.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for waiting. We are finally back with the next game of the FSL MLBB Indonesia tournament. And remember, this is a one-off. This has nothing to do with the FSL circuit. You know, we put that on hold because of the whole COVID-19 situation, but hopefully we can get updates from the relative authorities and we can make sure that the tournament is running again. But for now, let's take a look at what the next game has in store for us. Before we start into the draft, to give a big shout out to our partners Dreamcore, Yahoo, as well as Super Solid. Do check them out, and if you haven't already, please follow us and like our Facebook page as well as Instagram to get all the latest updates that FSL has in store for you. But for now, let's take a look at draft, shall we? We're gonna have a Valor as well as a High Loss ban and a Kimi get a ban out. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a Selena or a Kaja ban. Both heroes are really good, and I think, you know, coming into the Indonesia games, I do see a lot of Selena getting picked out. We do see a couple of Kajas getting picked as well, but I think, you know, we will see an interesting game. This should be an interesting game between VIVACIOUS Angels and NGID ESPORT AIKO. And you know, if you missed out the previous games, don't worry, you can always catch them back on our streaming platforms, be it YouTube, Twitch or Facebook. You can always check that out, and you can always, you know, check out the games that you've missed, as well as the games that we're gonna be casting tomorrow. Yes, we still have a day too, so don't forget about that. We're gonna see Selena ban out, like I said. That kind of leaves the cloth exposed, and VIVACIOUS are gonna go for that. Looks like NGID are considering for a tank pick. I think Qualifiers is really good. You know, either a Qualifier or, you know, with the Valor getting banned out, they can also go for the Atlas. Kaja is also open. You know, Cho is open. I'm really surprised to see that Cho isn't prioritized in the region of Indonesia, because in the other regions that I've casted, be it, you know, Myanmar, the Singapore, Malaysia region, and in fact a lot of high mythic games, even in the FPL, you also do see Cho being prioritized quite a bit because of how versatile it is as a hero, right? You not only get damage in a hero, you also get CC, you can get a stun with his ultimate or his first skill, Chikundo or Way of the Dragon. You also have quite a bit of a decent wave pushing power. You know, his passive more faster does give you quite a bit of extra punch to the damage that he already has. And you know, there are some people that like to go first item Blade of Despair. There's some like to go Endless Battle. I think whatever pick you go for, you can even go for Blade of Hypnosis. He's just such a flexible fighter to have in your kit. Like, you can kind of flex him, you pick him up, and you either go onto the fighter lane or you can even go as a tank. And you know, he's just such a good hero to have. But once again, being overlooked throughout the first phase of the pick. In fact, Asmurder is one of the fighters which are prioritized in the Indonesia region. So we do see the Kufa as well as the Xbox instead of VIVACIOUS, and NGID gonna go for the Jawhead as well as the Asmurder, which I do like. I mean, Asmurder at the end of the day is a really good hero to have. Don't get me wrong. I think Asmurder is a hero which is really hard to counter. Obviously, you know, you do definitely can pick up the Necklace of Endurance, but you know, picking up Asmurder means someone has to go for that. If not, it's so hard to bring it down. And you know, there really isn't the most of heroes out there that counter. I think Carry is maybe it's one of the heroes that really counters the most because of the pure damage. But other than that, you don't really see much heroes that can, you know, deal with her shield and the fact that she's just, you know, has so much regen. So we do see Granger and Farstar getting banned now, which means the Atlas will get picked by NGID. So eventually the Atlas still falls onto the raid side. I would say that they do need a mage. So Lena's already banned out, so Nana's not too bad. I think Farstar is still a ban out as well, so okay, so they don't really have much to work with. I think Nana is pretty good, to be honest. Digi is also quite good. If you look at the lineup coming from NGID, I would actually recommend Digi, right? You get decent damage from Auto Alarm Bomb, You also get, you know, a bit of that CC with reverse time, and obviously with Time's Journey, you can negate all the CCs coming out from both the Jawhead, the Asmurder, the Karja, the Atlas. Lig is just such a good support to have, right? And if you ignore him, he has so much damage in auto alarm bomb, especially early game. You can actually stack all your auto alarm bombs to one bush, and you know, that's a really easy first blood there. With that being said, it is Hellcut that's Paradise as well as the Nana, and we'll see how that works out into the game itself. So there we have it, first game between Vivicious Angels and NGID Gaming AIKO. I really want to know what does NGID stand for, because I asked one of my really good friends who's also an Indonesian caster past I mean Propasta is one of them, but you know, I asked Ufi what it stands for, and he said no, there's just no shortcut, it doesn't stand for anything. So
to Mobile Legends.
Really interested to know that.
5 seconds till the enemy reaches the battlefield. Smash them. All troops deployed.
Although it looks like NGID is Night Gamer's ID, I think that makes the most sense. Obviously, we do see a bit of aggression coming up. Oh, and a lot of trouble, especially for the Claw. They did manage to steal the red buff away, so that is a pretty successful invasion in my books from NGID. They didn't really get the red buff stolen as well. In fact, Hellcut at the top lane, kind of struggling against this Asmurder. Until he gets that level 4, you know, I don't think there's any way that this Hellcut is able to come up on top of this Asmurder. And you know, not only that, you know, Stardust Dance at level 4 means that she can jump onto the Hellcut, and if the Hellcut isn't careful enough, he might get taken out. I think the only way he can get killed is if he gets a full stack Deadly Stinger onto the Asmurder, which isn't the easiest to do. You know, when you know you see the Asmurder just moving around, she's just constantly trying to use Stardust Dance on you. Little trouble for Jirachi right here, has to make a run for it. No level 4 on the map just yet, except for Bruno. That's gonna be the first blood coming in for the Asmurder. Tried to go for the turtle steal there, didn't really work out, and not only did they pick up the red the turtle, it kinda also gave away the first blood, so that isn't the best start, I would say, coming out from Vivicious Girl side, although we do see a bit of a group up coming up from NGID, so I think they're trying to set up this mid push. Meanwhile, bottom lane Jawhead against the Xbox. Two fighters who don't really need to do much, although you do see that level difference between Jawhead and the Xbox at this point in time. Almost 1.5 levels difference. And now they're going to go for this raid invid. NGID just being very aggressive, jumps right onto 4 of them. Not sure if that's the one that they want. The Fatal Links brings 3 members onto the back. But look at that, the last Insanity, so much damage done onto NGID, and even Peach has to make a run for it now. Bruno dropping in really deep, has to quickly get out there before the rest of Vivicious Girls group up. And in fact, Mouse, he even wants this. One more hit should do the trick, but Bulbasaur a little bit out of range, and you know, as a Bruno, you don't really want to risk it. You want to go back to your farming ways, and I would say that's a pretty decent fight coming from Vivicious Girls. I gotta say, if this game really goes the distance, I would favor NGID, because they have more CC, they have a little bit more crowd control, they have a little bit more AoE in terms of being able to control with the Atlas and the Asmorder. Although that being said, they have to be careful not to group up like we saw before, especially against the Xbox, who, you know, he's just gonna look at every single opportunity to just jump in with the last insanity. So they have to be aware of that. Meanwhile, Jirachi has to back off after pushing out the middle lane. Jaw hit already in the middle. Oh, the flicker as well as the ejector didn't land on his target. Meanwhile, they get the divine judgment onto Bulbasaur, dropping really low. But look at that, another fight happening in mid. They did manage to get the kill onto the Claude. Another jump coming in from Jawhead. Unstoppable force gets the ejector toss, and they sacrifice his life for it. But it is a 2-for-1 trade. So I gotta say, Nigit still did pretty decently there. The early catch off onto the Claude was definitely worth it. However, that gave the space for the Helker to push onto the top side. That is always the trade-off. You gotta remember, when you get 5 men down to mid, one of your lanes are getting pushed out. It looks like Nigit will trade it off with the turtle tick. I gotta say, this game hasn't been the easiest for this Nana, right? Essentially all she has to do is really stay at the back, but it isn't easy for her because she doesn't really have much area to work with, right? If you look at the heroes on the side of Nigit, really mobile, even for the Bruno, has a slight volley tacker, and not only that, forced to use with the word animation, but not enough damage as of now. Despite that, they still will get the first tier tower in top lane, so I wouldn't say that's the biggest loss. They do lose the Jawhead though. And not only that, they will also probably lose the bottom lane. However, it looks like Nigit, they will set up for the tier 2 on the top side, so no troubles there for the raid team. Now we do see VIVACIOUS goes grouping up just to make sure that Claude can take his blue buff safely. Mio has been playing pretty passively. She doesn't really need to go aggressive, like I said. You know, he will have a Demon Hunter Sword sooner or later, but the later this game goes, you know, the lesser the damage dealt by Claude. I would say, I wouldn't say lesser, but you know, it doesn't pack as much of a punch. So she has to quickly get the Demon Hunter Sword, quickly find a couple of good fights so that she can scale way faster. Look at the Bruno, she's already completed his endless battle. He's probably going to build into the Berserker's Fury, and that's going to be a really scary Bruno if left unchecked. Meanwhile, we do see Asmorder pushing on the bottom lane. I don't know about that. Tyrant's Rage onto Tyrant's Revenge, and now the Atlas Link, they get the kill onto Jirachi. Not only that, Helker jumping in by himself, he gets the stun out. Look at that, the smart missiles come in, and looks like it is the Ring of Order that will pick up the kill onto the Helker. Meanwhile, bottom lane, Favela just standing still. After getting the tier 1 tower, I thought she had DC, but never mind that, she's back to life. And yet, with the Bruno already working onto the turtle, good take there. And this is one of the reasons why I feel Hellcat has fallen down the pecking order. Not only as an assassin, but even in every single role. If you look at it, there's always another hero that is better at Hellcat in terms of being able to achieve something out of that position. If you put him in the fighter role, you know, there's better heroes, like even for an Asmorder or Uranus, you know, there's just so much on the kit. Meanwhile, bottom lane, Mew, oh, the flicker! And the smart missiles will get it. Not only that, they get the divine judgment onto the Claude, and that's gonna be a huge win. Fatal links onto the Xbox, but forced to use the flicker once again. The ejector right onto the backline, and they also pick up the Nana along the way. And that's gonna be a 4-man kill. Oh, I'm not sure about that. I thought he wanted to toss the other way. They're having a little bit of fun, but they do manage to pick up the tier 3 at the bottom lane. And now it looks like they get, oh, the flicker! Definitely caught Claw out of position and the Purify, but that was just caught him off guard completely. Good timing coming out from Helen on this card jar. And with that, it looks like it's gonna be a really quick first game.
Victory!
NGID ESPORT AIKO not delaying at all to get that game 1 in hand. And I gotta say, that was really clinical. Like, we saw it coming from a mile away. We look at the draft, right? It's so aggressive. So much CC in the kit. And like I said, you know, you got a Jawhead, you got a Kaja, you got an Atlas, you know, heroes that have this huge CC that can immediately remove someone on the spot. And then on top of it, they have an Asmorder to have crop control. You know, you got the Atlas with Annihilate, you got the Ring of Order, and Kaja also does decent damage. Don't forget the smart missiles, and that just frees up so much space for the Bruno to farm, as well as the Bruno to just pick someone off in all this mayhem of a team fight. And I mean, we saw a bit of potential coming from NGID ESPORT, or rather from Vivacious goals, where, you know, you had the I gotta say that last insanity, the mid definitely had its impact. You also have the blazing duet coming up from Mew on the squad, but it just wasn't enough. That's what I'm trying to say. It's just not enough because they don't have anything against the CC of NGID ESPORT AIKO. So I would definitely prefer the Digi over the Nana, just because of how relevant Digi is to this draft. Like, you know, you have the reverse time to lock someone down. You have the time's journey to prevent yourself from getting CC'd from all of these heroes on the side of NGID ESPORT. And on top of it, you also have decent damage, which I think in every single aspect is a better pick compared to the Nana. But hey, I'm not going to trash on Nana too much. He definitely did provide a bit of a support, especially in the mid game. 3 assists, not too bad. But eventually it was NGID ESPORT AIKO that picked up game 1. So that being said, we go for a short break. But when we are back, we will bring you game 2 between Vivacious Girls and NGID ESPORT, or rather NGID ESPORT. I think that's how does I say it, right? Night Gamers ID, right? It makes the most sense. So Night Gamers ID, ESPORT AIKO, and we'll see you right after the break. Alright. Oh, there was another voice out there, but we are falling back with game 2 between Vivacious Girls and Night Gamers ID. And whoop. What can I say? NGID, they didn't manage to walk away with the game number 1 in hand for really strong performance revolving around that Bruno pick. And not only the Bruno pick, I think revolving a lot of this power picks that they had. And they definitely made use a lot of the CCs. You can see a lot of flicker, especially with Jawhead, you know, jumping in the very final moment using the unstoppable force to dive underneath the turrets and getting all the stray kills, which was really effective for the most part. And then now they focus on the Selena pick. So Selena was actually banned out by them in the previous game, so this time around they will go for it. They also pick up the Hylos, and they also pick up the Asmorder. So they really love this Asmorder pick. I can't see why Asmorder is such a highly picked hero in the Indonesia region. And for the side of Vivacious Girls, they will settle for the Jawhead and the Kufa. So they have decent amount of CC this time around as compared to the previous game. Faster pick is not too bad. Now they have to focus a lot on banning out like a fighter. So
your team is banning
either a fighter or an MM. So I think if they want to ban out an MM so that they can pick up either the Grudge or Bruno for themselves, is to ban out the carry. I think carry is going to work really well against the Kufa as well as the Jawhead. Either that, or you know, they can actually ban out a fighter. So I think one of the fighters that is looking to be a pretty decent pick for the side of NGID would definitely be the Tamus. Either the Tamus or, you know, someone that can actually deal with the Jawhead. So maybe like an Xbox. So yeah, they ban out the Xbox. I think that's not too bad of a ban. For the side of NGID, I think at this point of time they need to ban out an MM. Either that or a fighter, but I really think there's not much fighters left on the board that they have to worry about. With Xbox getting banned out, Jawhead already getting pick, and you know, for some reason Cho is just completely not in the Indonesia region. I think banning on MM would make more sense. Not too bad, carry ban. From what I see, Vivacious, they like to focus a lot on rotating around their mage, so I would think that they want to run this fast pick alongside with an they can farm really quickly. So picking out Bruno for themselves is really good. But I think, you know, with banning out the Xbox and with a lot of fighters getting picked up, they have to worry about the hero pool. So maybe they want to pick up the Leomord first. That's fine.
Leomord.
So it looks like the Leomord will get set up, and I mean there is Marshall on the board, which we saw a couple of teams already played, so that isn't out of the question. Although I think Marshall is a very pocket pick. Like she's one of the heroes where you need to be really comfortable with using the Marshall. If not, she's just gonna be completely useless. So she's a very touchy hero for a lot of players out there, I would say. But you know, it really depends on the team. Talmus getting picked up. I think Bruno, like I said, it's a really good pick for either side. VIVACIOUS goes, well, I mean, essentially the only hero that they should pick now is Gretja, right? Someone that can put the distance between him and the Hylos, as well as the Talmus. You know, doesn't really have to worry about getting caught up with the Asmarda because of his range. He can stay at the back, use his Vesperity to clear the waves, and then kind of use Death Sonata to finish anyone off that is really paper. And you know, if he builds enough damage into the late game, he can also get like 1 to 2 hits onto the Bruno, and that's gonna hurt a lot. But it's gonna be a Hanzo. Alright, so they want to go for that, you know, very bursty assassin feeling. So like I said, once again, VIVACIOUS going for a very extraordinary draft, something out of the ordinary, especially with the Hanzo pick. I think if the Hanzo was picked up early or before they revealed the NMM, that would have been pretty good. But I don't know, they might be able to put it off. They might be able to prove me wrong, and I'm okay with that. But I would say that compared to the first game that they definitely, in terms of drafting sense, have managed to keep NGID in check. They get in the previous game so much CC on the board, so much single target CC, you know, huge CCs that can burst someone down. You know, you got the Jawhead, you have this Kaja, you have the Asmarda, you know, heroes that are really good, not only 1v1 duo, but in a team fight situation. So this time around, you know, by picking up the Jawhead for themselves, they deny it away from NGID ESPORT, and not only that, they also have some sort of a CC for their own team.
5 seconds till the enemy reaches the battlefield. Smash them! All troops deployed!
I'm pretty surprised to see that they didn't really go for the invade there, especially when you have a Hanzo. You know, you definitely do want to get that Soul Fist and get that early steal on the buff, but it's okay. They decided to secure their own buff at this point. Meanwhile, they get just got a 3-man rotate. I like this rotation from NGID. You know, they make sure that they are very focused on just doing what works for them. Especially like in game 1, you saw them, they were aggressive but not overly aggressive, right? They made sure that they got kills, even with the rotations. When they lost someone, they managed to get a tower out of it. So all of those traits are really good traits of a team, because you want to make sure that despite losing a hero, you can still gain something out of that. Or even if you're losing a team fight somewhere else on the map, you're gaining something in return. And I think NGID has done a really good job at making sure that all of those boxes are left checked. And I'm not sure if Helen's AFK. Once again, she's just standing there in the brush, or maybe she's just making sure that she doesn't get ganked out. Meanwhile, topside, a little bit of action between Bulbasaur and Ideas. Looks like Talmus definitely will have the upper hand. Look at that, just immediately jumping in by herself, but it's actually a distraction as the rest of the NGID comes in from right underneath the tower. And that's gonna be an easy first blood for the side of NGID. Meanwhile, bottom side, they are still hunting for the Asmarda. Good position. Make sure she does get spot out TPs out of there just in time. And not only that, Curbs are a little bit too slow, and it looks like VIVACIOUS Gurus will not be able to pick up any turret out of the rotation. Only they get stunned right onto the Kufra. Now it's just hesitating to jump in at the very final second in case there might be more than one Qualifier getting the ejector onto the AIKO on the backline, but that is not the target that you want. And look at that wave of the word animation. One more hit should do the trick. Kufra dropping really low. They get both the Kufra as well as the Jawhead. Not only that, they even force the Farstar to fly out of bounds just to make sure that he stays alive. And once again, they get with the aggressive rotation, gets 2 kills out of that. And I'm pretty sure they will secure this turret. Given that the next wave should be coming in really soon. Tamus just split pushing onto the mid. Should be able to get back to the top just before Leon does any significant damage onto the turret. Turtle is up, but Nick is gonna focus on stealing with the blue buff at this point in time. Flame shot already being used. Until no buff for him except for the red one. Meanwhile, look at that, fights breaking into Selena, landing the arrow right onto the Farstar, which means they have to back off. Jirachi dropping really low, Glorious Pathway being laid on. They get the law and order onto the Hanzo. They find the real body. They get the kill off him, and now Cleffa on the run. Should we get out of there? It's a 1-for-1 trade. Not exactly the worst heroes to trade off. We're once again getting ganked up on the top lane. The Abyssal Arrow landing right onto Bulbasaur. And now with no one in lane, Tamus will be able to get this tier 1 very easily.
Request backup.
Go ahead. Chasing down this Tamu, should be able to get the troll. No, the flickers burn! And now comes the Tyrant's Revenge. They get the ejector off, saving it. Oh, the smart missiles, not enough damage onto the Tamus. The feathered airstrike just inches away. And it doesn't matter because that bought enough time for the Bruno as well as the Hylos to get this tier 1 in the middle of this map. Not only that, Asmod is also making really good work on the bottom lane against this Leomord who essentially has no range against the Asmod whatsoever. And it's just so tough for him to go wherever he goes. It seems like he does have a bit of a trouble trying to find a space on the map to farm, because at the top lane he's getting ganked by Selena as well as the Tamus, and the bottom lane, you know, he's constantly getting zoned out by the Asmurder. And even now, even Arceus isn't safe in the mid lane. Got the Silver Arrow just landing time and time again. Goes in for the Tyrant's Rage into the Tyrant's Revenge into the Tyrant's Rage, but just not enough follow up there. That would be really good if Arceus was alive and, you know, the Feather Airstrike was there to follow up. That would have, I'm pretty sure they might have got a couple of kills, but you know, Farstar down, they just lack so much of that burst damage that they needed right there. Leffa using the Unstoppable Force Ejector not being used. Meanwhile, Nicket's gonna get the turtle uncontested while Hylos make sure that Leomord isn't even close to the turtle speed. Abyssal Arrow once again off cooldown. Might be looking for a gang right now. Glorious Pathway being laid down here. Pitch going onto the back line. Look at that. The falling Stormwood just enough to slow in the midst of it all. Gets the jaw hit. Though Talmus goes down despite the Cauldron Inferno to get another Abyssal Arrow onto the Farstar. Nothing that she can do there.
Initiate retreat.
And Leomord with a little bit of a sneaky split pushing. Realizes that the Southern Gate is already back, so they will back off. Good call by Leomar, I'm not sure if he could have done anything even if he was on base. If you think about it, the only thing that he has in this point in time is the Decimation Assault, just to poke from a little bit of a range, but it does still put him in harm's way, right? If you get a high loss who drops the Glorious Pathway, they're going to be able to close the gap in no time, and that just leaves Bulbasaur really exposed, because essentially the only front liner that Vivicious has at this point is the Qualifier, and you know, the Qualifier is constant. Qualifier is someone that jumps forward. Right? If you want to pick a Qualifier as a protector, you need another tank, something like a high loss that can really stick on top of your teammates, that can can really turtle and just protect your backline. Whereas if you look at Qualifier, if you are the initiator with the Tyrant's Revenge, you're essentially leaving your teammates behind, and that just gives so much space needed for the get to just jump onto your back. Like we saw happening with the Esmeralda and the Selena, the Abyssal Arrows just getting the fast out time and time again. And yeah, like I said, Vivicious is just in a really tough spot. Once again, Abyssal Arrow landing, they get the ejector, the bait comes through, but still not enough burst damage to get the Selena down, which is a really worrying sign. If you fail to even get the kill on the Selena, imagine if that was a high loss. Abyssal Arrow once again on point onto the Qualifier, but they decide not to jump. They're focusing on taking the middle as well as the bottom. Tier 3's Tyrant's Rage being used, but all of this is just buying time for the side of the gate to get this middle tower. And they're definitely splitting up the forces of Vivicious Ghost. Ejector just to put a little bit of a safety distance between Selena and the Farsa. Top lane, Tamu still putting a lot of pressure on his tier 3 on the top lane. Jirachi getting stunned up. Bulbasaur, like I said, really just counting on Phantom Steed. Without the Phantom Steed, there really isn't much that Bulbasaur can do. Ejector, if they throw the Tamus back under the tier 3, a little bit of a punishment for that over-aggression, or rather that overextension. And once again, I really do feel bad for Arceus. This is the third time that the Abyssal Arrow has landed on her. They're gonna get that kill over there. They will also get this tier 3 tower in mid. So there's gonna be super minions down the middle of the lane. You can definitely see the stark difference between the two MMs, or not the two MMs, but the two hyper carries at this point. And the fact that Farsa bought a mask so that she can give a farm to Hanzo is even more of a gamble now, because Farsa isn't really getting the most of farm by buying the mask. She's only got going ward, and you can definitely see, like, at this point in time in the game, the Feathered Air Strikes are just not hurting the team enough. I still think there is a way back in this game. It's just so tough. They need to win so many of these team fights, and they also need to be able to pick off this Bruno, who has had an easy game so far. 4-0-3, really protected by the teammates. Look at that, you got Hylos, got Asmorna just sitting around the front line. Once again, they jump, and Abyssal Arrow again landing on the target. They get 2 kills off onto the Qualifier as well as the Jawhead, and although the Revitalize has been late, they can't do much, and this is pretty much going to be GG right now. They're going in for more kills. Bulbasaur getting stunned up by the Law and Order. The tower will get the kill onto the High Loss, and the creeps are just ran out at the very last second, but fear not, another fresh wave of creeps come in and negate ESPORT this game even faster than the previous one.
Victory!
And it's gonna be a perfect 2-0 once again in this best of 3 series. I mean, what can I say so far? It has been so one-sided in a lot of the games that we saw today, and I can't really blame them. Like, in the end of the day, it's really unfortunate that they ran into a team that's aggressive, and I gotta say, for all the teams that have been winning, or rather have won the series 2-0 for today, if you look at the playstyles, they're very aggressive. They try to make use of that early rotation that they can, and they try to go for invades. It's always aggression, aggression, aggression. As early as possible, pick up something like, even for teams that have a Valor, teams that have a Selena, teams that have Hylos, heroes that from level 1 are useful and can partake in team fights are always favored by strong teams, because they don't have to wait for all these heroes to get farmed, they don't have to wait for these heroes to come online, they don't have to, you know, wait for the right items to be built before they can partake in team fights. And because of that, that gives them the flexibility to, you know, invade the lane early, or even go into the jungle and just straight up just go for the steal or the buff. So really good call coming up from the get, and you can really see that they have a really good understanding of heroes. And I gotta give a big shout out to Favela sorry, on that Selena, who's constantly landing those abyssal arrows, you know, 3 times onto the Farsa, a couple of times onto the Lumon as well, and I think that was also one on the Hanzo, although that didn't amount to a Q, that was still a pretty good thing. So I would say, like, you know, once again, a bit of a gamble with the Hanzo pick, and it could have went the other way if they played more aggressive. Like I said, if you're picking with Hanzo, you generally want to go for the invade early game, because you have that soul fist, and you can actually just steal away one of the creeps, and that does put your opponents on the defense, because they want to defend that buff. And you know, with a Hanzo, you can kind of exploit that, you know, try to make a bit of that aggressive rotation that I spoke of earlier. But with that being said, congratulations to Negate Esports AIKO. They will proceed into the second round. And you know, speaking of the second round, we will also be streaming one more game for today. We are waiting for the winners between Louvre Angels and Siren Moon, and the winner of that game will go up and face XCN Queens. So we'll see who goes up against that, because that is going to be our next stream match of the day. It's also going to be our last stream match. It's also going to be a best of 3. So in fact, the whole tournament is going to be a best of 3. So I'm really excited for it. If you're wondering what the girls are fighting for, well, 4th and 3rd place both walk away with $50, 50 Singapore dollars SGD that is, and then in 2nd place 100 SGD. First place will walk away with 150 SGD, so a little bit of a reward and incentive for the girls on the line. We'll go for a short break. When we are back, we'll bring you the last best of 3 series, so don't go anywhere.